This episode of Harvey Brownstone Interviews is brought to you by the Harvey Brownstone Talk Show Blend Coffee, available at hollywoodblends.com. Everyone's saying it's the best coffee they've ever tasted. Why not give it a try and see for yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's special guest is a legendary multi-award-winning actress who's brought us dozens of memorable performances in a career spanning over 5 decades. She received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress in a Leading Role for her stellar performance in Hester Street, and she's appeared in many iconic movies, including Carnal Knowledge, Wedding in White, The Last Detail, Dog Day Afternoon, Annie Hall, The World's Greatest Lover, The Muppet Movie, The Princess Bride, Scrooged, Joe Versus the Volcano, and one of my favorite movies in recent years, the highly acclaimed Between the Temples, for which she won a New York Film Critics Circle Award for Best Supporting Actress. On television, we all remember her as Simka Doblitz Gravis, the quirky and sharp-tongued wife of Andy Kaufman's character Latka on the classic TV sitcom Taxi, for which she won 2 Emmy Awards, a Golden Globe Award nomination, and a TV Land Medallion Award. She also portrayed Lillian Abernathy in American Dreamer, Annie Caraldo in Pearl, Gertrude Kabbelput in Gotham, Lillian Kaustupper in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Minnie Markowitz in Hunters, and Nana in Dinner with the Parents. And she's guest starred in dozens of classic TV shows, including Laverne and Shirley, Cheers, Seinfeld, Empty Nest, 2.5 Men, Law and Order SVU, and Chicago Hope, for which she received an Emmy Award nomination for Outstanding Guest Actress in a Drama Series. She's also appeared in a number of great TV movies and miniseries, including The Greatest Man in the World, An Invasion of Privacy, Burning Rage, Freaky Friday, Noah's Ark, and many more. And on the stage, our guest has starred on Broadway in a number of shows, including Harvey and Sly Fox, and she earned a Drama Desk Award nomination for her performance in The Effect of Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds. And she also played Madame Morrible in Wicked, not only on Broadway, but in numerous productions around the country. And she's appeared in over a dozen off-Broadway productions, including Macbeth, The Tempest, The Exonerated, and Love, Loss, and What I Wore, to name only a few. I am delighted and deeply honored to welcome the one and only Carol Kane to our show. Carol, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Harvey. It's a pleasure.
I know that being an actress was always what you wanted to do, even from a very young age. And then as a young teenager, you auditioned 14 times for the Broadway production of The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, and you didn't get the part. And after all that, which must have been devastating, even though you did end up doing the national tour with Tammy Grimes. My question, Carol, is this. When you faced rejection so early in your life, where did you get the courage and the resilience to just keep on trying and not give up on an acting career?
That's a very good question. I feel like I didn't have a choice, in a sense. I just read this brilliant autobiography of Al Pacino. I don't know if you've gotten to read it yet. Sonny Boy, I think it's called. In any case, he talks about the fact that he has friends who would say, why did you make it and I didn't? And, blah, blah, blah. And that Al would just answer that he just needed to do it. He didn't have a choice. He needed to keep going. And I feel that that is the case with me. At that point, I didn't feel like I had a choice. It's what I was in love with, But it's not easy. To any young people listening, it's a business filled with very personal feeling rejections, because they say things like, here's a big popular thing that they say, well, they went another way, meaning that they picked somebody else instead of you, which is, how can you not take it personally? It's you.
No, of course you would. I heard you say in an interview with the brilliant Julian Schlossberg that not getting a job after auditioning has been harder to deal with over the years, not easier. You mentioned how upset you were when you didn't get the role in the Broadway revival of Pippin.
That's right.
Why do you think it has gotten harder to deal with rejection when you've had such incredible success in your career?
I think that it's a question of the fact that when you're young, you sort of I don't know. It's almost like you don't know any better. You just keep at it, keep at it, keep at it, which is why I did decide after that particular audition experience that I didn't get, I decided I wouldn't audition anymore. And then immediately Kimmy Schmidt came my way with no audition and many other things. But then I did have to audition for Hunters, which you mentioned. I played Minnie Markowitz and Hunters, and it was such a genius piece of writing by David Weil. I was told, either you audition or you don't get it, and I just felt that I had to be part of it. I had to take the risk, and fortunately, I didn't get kicked in the teeth that particular time.
Well, that's got to be reinforcing for the times when you don't get it, that you
It's
do get it a lot.
It's not reinforcing. If somebody says, okay, I'm just going to say it. If somebody says to you, I don't want you, Harvey, well, it hurts. It doesn't matter how many times you've heard it said or how old you are. Although not for Al Pacino, because Al always figures that it's their loss. Al has the healthiest attitude. I will tell you a great little story. When I was very young, I was working with Al a lot. We were doing a lot of theater, and I did Dog Day Afternoon with him. And, I was part of a coterie of young actors that sort of hung out together with Al. And one day I said to him, not to just keep harping on the subject, but I said to him, Al, how do you stand it when you audition and how, I just get so nervous every time I have to audition. And he said, oh, I just think of it as a chance to act in front of people.
Oh, well, there's that. F. Murray Abraham feels the same way. He
What?
actually feels he's auditioning them in a way.
Oh, wow. Well, that's such a healthy attitude. If only when I grow up, I hope I have that attitude.
You've done just fine. Now, you got an Oscar nomination for Best Actress in 1976 for your movie Hester Street. In preparation for this interview, I watched the movie again a few days ago, and I was reminded, Carol, of how much Yiddish you had to speak in the film, which you had to learn phonetically. How difficult was that?
That's, well, you've got some really good questions here, Mr. Harvey. I was young. I was so young. And, when you're young, things like languages seep in easy, in an easy way. Like when my sister and I were little, we moved to France for a year and a half. Our parents moved, and they put us in a French-speaking school that none of the teachers or the students spoke any English. And, we cried for like 3 months, and then the next day we came home speaking fluent French. It's just, it's so as a 22-year-old learning the Yiddish for Hester Street with a master teacher from the Yiddish theater, it was a lot of work, a lot of work, a lot of work, but it wasn't painful. Now, recently, I had the great honor to do one day of shooting in the newest film by Darren Aronofsky, Caught Stealing, it's called. And I play the mother of Liev Schreiber and Vincent D'Onofrio, and I had to speak Yiddish again all day long. And I would tell you something, you can't imagine how much more difficult it was for me to learn the Yiddish at the age of 70 than it was at the age of 22. I mean, it really was, I just was terrified. It was so hard. But I think I got it. But it was really hard. And then, of course, in the movie you mentioned that I'm so proud of, between the temples, I have to learn a Torah portion in Hebrew. That is the hardest because Yiddish, if you speak French or the Eastern European roots and everything, the Yiddish sort of, there's something musically that feels familiar, but Hebrew is a different story. And especially because when you do your Torah portion, you have to chant it. It's not singing. And that is also a very different thing to learn, so, but on the other hand, look how lucky I am that I get to learn these wild things for my job, you know?
Well, I got to say, when I watched you in Between the Temples, remembering that I had to go to bar mitzvah lessons for a whole year to be able to chant like that, and you did it after probably learning for a few hours, it was really pretty
No,
impressive.
not a few hours. I had one of the producers, his day job was teaching kids, teenagers, their Torah portion. And I had this guy coming over day after day after day after day. And every time I had like 10 minutes down on the set, I got this poor guy in my dressing room and, drilled me and drilled me because I really wanted to know it, and it's not easy, as you know, right?
Yeah,
Was it
and
easy for you?
it was not easy, but you did a beautiful job. Now,
Thank you.
Carol, you got an Oscar nomination very early in your career, which can cause a kind of emotional volcano inside you because some actors have told me that they had a lot of trouble convincing themselves that they deserved it. Did you experience that feeling?
Oh my God, every minute of every day. Terrible. I mean, it's so crazy, but yeah, I had that feeling very badly
But you didn't get a job offer for a full year after the
for a year, a
1976
solid year.
Oscar ceremony. So you
No,
could
I didn't.
certainly attest to the fact that the Oscar curse really exists. But then in 1977, you co starred in your first comedy with Gene Wilder in The World's Greatest Lover. Were you nervous about doing a comedy?
I thought he was cuckoo that he asked me to do it because I had never done any comedy before. And then he calls me out of the blue, Gene, such an honor, and asks me to do this thing. And I'm thinking, what is he thinking? There's nothing to guarantee him that I'm going to be even remotely funny. But I guess he had a sense from the character, he said, from the character of Giddle that I played in Hester Street, he had a sense that I would be right for Annie, his wife in The World's Greatest Lover, and I think it worked out okay.
Oh, it sure did. And boy, did that open the door for you in terms of comedy. Now, in Annie Hall, 1977, you played Alison Porchnick, who was the first wife of Woody Allen's character, Alvy Singer.
Yeah.
What was it like to be directed by an actor who was also starring in the movie?
Oh, I was maybe the most nervous I've ever been in that because I had such awe of Woody and his writing and directing and acting and everything. And there I was with him, and he is not, he, I'm not telling tales out of school. Everybody says he doesn't direct a lot, I mean, he doesn't tell you a lot. He sort of, he casts you with the help of the fabulous Juliet Taylor because he thinks you're right for the part and are not going to need. This is what I think. This is what I think. I think he doesn't cast someone who he thinks needs a lot of direction and a lot of molding to become that character. I think he casts people who he thinks are close to their characters in some way, that the character is accessible to you. And then he doesn't say anything unless he really needs to. So that is a little scary. Also, and very few people know this, but my character, Alison Porchnick, was supposed to play the cello. And I had a scene in which I was supposed to play the cello, and I worked very hard on the cello, which is a very hard instrument, as you know. There's no frets or anything, and I I worked very hard with a teacher from Juilliard on the cello for the scene I had, and I was feeling a little bit good about what I was doing with the cello. I was thinking, I got this fingering down. Wait till Woody sees this. Anyway, I go on the set and I play the cello, and the whole crew and Woody and everybody are just basically laughing at me, and they're in agony because it sounded so bad. So in that case, we had to put his director's hat on and say, stop, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do it. So I didn't do it.
Oh, that's disappointing.
I tried.
Now, you've been directed by 4 Academy Award winners: Mike Nichols, Hal Ashby, Woody Allen, and Milos Forman. Among the other great directors you've worked with, I have to include Sidney Lumet, John Cassavetes, Hal Ashby, Rob Reiner. What do you think makes a great director?
Well, there's a certain degree of intelligence, like human and humane intelligence and empathy, I think, that is a key ingredient, and keen observation and understanding of human nature in some way. But I would tell you that Mike Nichols, being my first great director, who might be, well, I wouldn't say the greatest because, of course, I've worked with so many great directors, but he's such a genius. And Mike made me feel that I was perfect for my part, that no one else could play it, that I was perfect. And that was one of the greatest pieces of directing that I've ever experienced. Because if a director instills some confidence in you, you automatically get to a freedom in what you're doing because you know they believe in you, they have faith in you, and that sets, well, I think it sets you free. And so I think that even though that's a pretty subtle element, just to believe in somebody, I think it's very essential in a great director.
The fact that you take auditions so hard when you don't get the part, combined with the fact that it means so much to you that a director has total faith in you, are 2 sides of the same coin. Do you see that?
Yes, I do see that. That's true, isn't it? You're right. Boy, yeah. So, but as you see, I have been very lucky. I have had these masters. I've worked with the masters, and I'm so lucky. And then this latest picture that we've been talking about, Between the Temples, with this brilliant actor, Jason Schwartzman. Our director in that, Nathan Silver, he had that same gift of making you feel like you're the one. Well, you know how if somebody loves you in a love affair or whatever, and they make you feel that you are the one, you become a bigger version of yourself, a better version of yourself because somebody believes in you.
Yeah, because your insecurities fall away. So I want to go to 1978. Carol, you co-starred on Broadway with Shelley Winters in the effect of gamma rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds.
Mhm.
I'm going to be frank with you. When we had Louis J. Stadlin on our show a few years ago, he said she was not great to work with on Broadway in Minnie's Boys, which was 8 years before you worked with her.
Is that so? Wow. She played the mother of the Marx Brothers?
Correct. So,
Yeah.
what was your experience working with Shelley Winters?
Okay. Shelley, like most great artists, and she was a great artist, I mean, really a great artist, was a very, very complicated, profoundly emotional person. And so, not simple, nothing simple about working with someone who is that complicated and emotional. So it wasn't easy. It was not easy. But she was great. She was fucking great. Yes, she was amazing. She was not easy, but she was amazing. Worth it.
Now, of course, I have to ask you about Taxi. Carol, you were one of the first movie stars to do television, which was frowned upon in the industry back then. Did you
Yeah.
have any hesitation about doing television?
Completely. I really thought I better probably not do it. And then the reason I ended up doing it, the first time that I did it, which was just a single guest star shot the first time, the reason I felt like I could do it is because I saw an episode of Taxi in which Jack Gilford, the great Jack Gilford, played Judd Hirsch's dad. And I thought, if it's good enough for Jack Guilford, who am I? He's so great. So that's why I did it. And boy, oh boy, am I grateful to Jack and to the taxi people that I did it, because these are that was a very important time for me, and we are all still very, very close. In fact, we all just went to, Jim Brooks just got married, and we all went to his wedding in California. Jim Brooks was, along with Ed Weinberger and Stan Daniels, the creator of Taxi, and Mary Tyler Moore, and a lot of other great things.
It was a great, great show. I remember seeing an interview where Andy Kaufman said he did not want Latka and Simka to get married. How did you feel about your characters getting married?
Oh, did you say you saw an interview?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't see that, I don't think, but I knew he didn't want it.
Did you want it?
Oh God, yes, of course. But Andy was there, right? And he had created this incredible character, which had previously been known as Foreign Man. He had created this character, and he performed this character in what some people call stand-up comedy, but in Andy's case, it was performance art. He was such an artist. And so and then the producer saw Foreign Man and decided to hire him for Taxi. So I think that to some extent he didn't even want to be in the show to begin with, because he didn't like to rehearse. He felt that that was not the right method for him. And there's a lot of rehearsal in a TV show, especially an ensemble show like that. And then I suddenly Simka appears, and he has to teach me his language, and he has to, I have, I'm sort of co-opting some of Foreign Man to be Foreign Woman, and so that in and of itself is probably not easy for him. And then suddenly he's married, and that's, it's funny, as I'm telling this story, I'm thinking, this is how a lot of men feel in real life. They don't want to get hitched. They don't want to get tied down. So I think that Andy didn't want to get tied down. But you know what? The way they wrote us as a couple, certainly he was not tied down. We had the most fantastic the scenes together as a couple, where his alter ego Vic comes in, and I'm on a date with Latka, and suddenly this smooth talker Vic appears, and the writing was, it's just, if I was a rich person, I would have paid them $1 million an episode to get to say the words I got to say.
Yeah, it was a fantastic show. Did you see Jim Carrey's portrayal of Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon?
Yes,
Did you think Jim Carrey captured the essence of Andy?
I think he did. I think he did. Danny DeVito was a producer along with Milos, the great Milos Forman. And I think that they really went to a lot of trouble to honor who Andy was. And I think he did a great job. I mean, it was I think it was pretty emotional for all of us to sort of see this time in our lives recreated with this individual who we had love for, who died so young.
Yeah, really, a really tragic loss. Now,
Tragic.
Carol, you're the only person I've interviewed so far who appeared in Ishtar, which got terrible reviews when it came out, but is now considered a cult classic.
Exactly.
When you look at that amazing cast and the brilliant writer and director Elaine May, what do
Yeah.
you think went wrong with that movie?
I don't know. I feel like, at a certain point, sometimes they start gunning for people who have a certain degree of success. I think they're sort of looking to take them down. I think there's an element of that involved, because it has become quite a classic, and it's wonderful, and Elaine is a genius, as you know, and I don't know. I think sometimes they just the critics will come to a screening with their guns drawn, and I don't know why exactly that is. But let's face it, that happened to the great Michael Cimino too. His second picture, they just tore him apart, whereas they just worshipped his first picture. And I don't know why that happens. So I guess, but it's a weird business. There's nothing simple about the show business.
No, there sure isn't. Now, you played the grandmother in Addams Family Values, and that role was played by Judith Malina in the original movie. Did you try to make your performance similar to Judith since you were playing the same person?
No, I just tried to make it my own. I mean, Judith Malina is Judith Malina. She's such, we were also in Dog Day Afternoon together because she played Al Pacino's mother. So, nobody's going to be Judith Malina. She's another great artist. I keep repeating myself, but that's because I've been so lucky to work with all these great artists. I mean,
Well,
just
and they've been very lucky to work with you. And I happen to know from my dear friend Catherine Cermak that you were a very good friend to Bette Davis, and you actually got to portray her in an off-Broadway play called The Lying Lesson. What was it like to channel Bette Davis?
she's my hero. She just was such a great character actress slash big movie star. And that was something back in the day that didn't exist. A big movie star would basically be themselves over and over again. And that's what I think that's what the studios thought that the public wanted, was to see, sort of a repeat performance from a big movie star. Bette Davis was such a great character actress. She would, if her character had to look ugly, notoriously, for instance, that she did a movie where her character had an accident, a car accident, and was all beat up, and she went to her doctor, and had him bandage her up and make her look how you would look if something like that happened. And she drove on the lot, and the guard at the gate was just so terribly upset. What had happened to her? What had happened, Miss Davis? Movie stars didn't do that. If a movie star had a bad car accident, the makeup artist would put like a little shading over here to indicate that they had a black and blue mark, but it would be shading that would enhance their bone structure. But she went all out. Like in Now Voyager. Look at what she looks like in the beginning of that movie. She's got these eyebrows, these things on her face. She's heavy set. She's transformed, into someone who is not attractive. And then she becomes a great beauty. So it's quite a fantastic transition. But there was no other movie star doing that back in the day. And I just, from the time I was very, very young, I was mesmerized by her work. I took her book with me on the road when I did the primary Miss Jean Brodie. I read her autobiography on the road, and I was a teenager, and then I got to meet her through your very extraordinary friend Catherine Cermak. Catherine is the reason that I met Bette Davis. I suppose she's probably told you that.
Well, she told me that Miss Davis always hoped that you would play her.
Wow, that's incredible.
I know the movie that you mentioned with the car accident, that was Marked Woman. Would you like to have played Bette Davis in the Ryan Murphy miniseries about Bette Davis and Joan Crawford? It was called
Of course I would have, but I think Susan was great. But of course I would have, because I want to play her, and I think that the play that we did was not really so much about her in the way that I had hoped it would be. So I'm still dying to play her again.
I
I
hope it
better
happens.
hurry up though, because I'm getting up there.
I hope it happens. Now, Carol, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you have the singular distinction of having appeared in 5 movies that have been selected for the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress
No, I was not aware of that.
as
What are
being
they?
culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And those
What
5
are they?
movies are Hester Street, Dog Day Afternoon, Annie Hall, The Muppet Movie, and The Princess Bride. How does that make you feel?
Oh gosh, I just feel very honored. I mean, I'm honored.
Well, I went on Google just for fun to search for your three most popular movies according to national surveys of movie lovers. The results were Scrooged, The Princess Bride, and When a Stranger Calls. Are you surprised by those results?
Yes, I'm not surprised by Scrooged or Princess Bride, but I am surprised by When a Stranger Calls. But it is a great movie.
Well, for the benefit of any of our viewers not familiar with When a Stranger Calls, it's a 1979 psychological thriller in which Carol Kane co-stars with Charles Durning and Colleen Dewhurst. Carol plays a babysitter being terrorized by a psychopathic killer. And Carol, you and Charlie made the 1993 sequel, When a Stranger Calls Back. But I read that you actually do not enjoy horror movies. Is that right?
I'm sorry to say, I get too scared. I remember I was at a friend's house by myself at night reading the script of When a Stranger Calls, and I said to myself, "You better stop reading," because I was by myself at night, and what they call really a scaredy cat. I mean, I'm one of those people that if I go to a horror movie, I'm like this for a lot of it. You know. And I'll be saying to whoever's sitting next to me, "Tell me when I can look." And I'm the same way with violence in movies, but when you make a horror movie, you're surrounded by a crew, so it's not, there's nothing scary about that. Well, except if you do a bad job, then it's really scary.
I don't think you've ever done a bad job that we've managed to see, that's for sure. But I started thinking, okay, what are my favorite Carol Kane movies? And I can't disagree with Princess Bride, certainly Dog Day Afternoon. But I think I have to say that Wedding in White is one of your best films. For the benefit of anyone who has not seen Wedding in White, it's a Canadian movie co-starring the brilliant Donald Pleasance, and Carol plays a teenage rape victim who's forced into marriage by her father. I think that's a highly underrated film.
I agree with you. I think it's an exquisite movie. It did win Best Film in the Canadian Film Festival that year, but it did not get any, and I don't know why, it did not get any publicity when it opened in America, in New York, or in LA. I guess they just didn't have a budget for it or something like that, because nobody saw it. And I am very proud of that movie. In fact, when it opened in LA, they didn't send me there to do press or anything, and I sent myself. And my dear friend Sylvia Miles, she said to me that there was a room in the Beverly Hills Hotel, a tiny little room right next to the bathroom, next to the polo lounge, that was the cheapest room in the hotel. Sylvia. And I took that room for myself, and I tried to get, interviews and stuff so that people would go see it. But it's almost impossible to do that, to stir up a press if you don't have a press agent or anything. But I was, again, very young. I was 20 when that came out. I was 19 when I shot it. And so didn't know any better, and I thought, I'm going out there and I'm going to try, but I didn't generate much press.
Well, I'm really glad to be able to mention the movie in this interview
Thank you.
because it's such an important movie you made. It's a very important subject matter as well. There's certainly an important message there. So, Carol, I have to say this now that I feel like you're my friend. I'm sure you're fully aware that you have one of the most distinctive and identifiable voices in the entertainment world. But I've noticed that over the years, you've been very adept at molding and shaping that voice to fit the characters you've played. Is that hard for you, or does it come easily?
Oh, I love it. It's fun for me to fit the characters I play, and I'm grateful that you mentioned that, because I guess my regular speaking voice is quite odd and identifiable, but I do mold it to whoever I'm supposed to be, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
Now, of all the characters you've played, I have to say that Lillian Kaustupper from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt has got to be one of the most hilarious, eccentric. The writing on that show by Tina Fey and Robert Carlock was just so good.
So good.
But you did Taxi in front of a live audience, and
Yeah.
Kimmy, which was also a comedy, was not filmed in front of a live audience. Did that affect your performance at all?
I personally, because I was brought up in the theater, I am happy to have an audience for comedy because if you're funny, they laugh, and then you did it. But if you do it the way they do it nowadays, which I don't understand why, it's much harder work, much longer hours, the way they shoot single camera or double camera now, like a film, long, long days of shooting. Nobody's laughing because if they laugh, they ruin the take. So it's I find it very unnerving that there's I mean, luckily I had Tina and Robert there, so I know that if it wasn't okay, they would make you do it again because they want a certain superior result. But I find it unnerving to have very funny lines and not hear anybody laugh. I'm not used to it still.
Have you ever been told to do it again when you thought yourself, but this was really good? I really nailed it.
Everybody's been told to do it again because you're not seeing the big picture. I mean, it's just you're just playing your character, but you're not really seeing every element in the scene. You're not keeping track in that way that a director or a writer is probably seeing the whole thing. And also, as many there are as many right versions of a way to do it as there are people doing it. So maybe I felt, oh, that was what I had intended. It worked out the way I had intended it, but maybe they had a whole other voice in their mind about how it should be done, and that you don't know, and they'll say do it again, or sometimes you can just even ask for a line reading just because you know that they're hearing something that you're not getting and you want to give them what they're hearing.
No, that makes total sense. Now, I'm sure you're aware there's millions of Trekkies out there who know you as Commander Pelia in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. She's a Lanthanite, thousands of years old. But I have to ask you, Carol, where did you come up with that accent?
Oh, I can't say. It's a hodgepodge of things that I've heard in my life along the way in different movies or different people I've met. It's like a melange of different influences.
Pretty unique. It's pretty unique. I think that training you got from Andy Kaufman really paid off in that show. When you look at all the roles you've played, is there any one character that you feel most closely resembles the real Carol Kane?
Hmm. That's it. There could be a very long pause here, Harvey, because I don't know. It's just I don't know. Maybe Simka.
I can see that. Did you ever have to play a part that you hated?
I've look. We all have to make a living, right? I mean, some people don't, but that's very few of them. Many actors are not in a position of picking and choosing throughout their career, and I'm one of those. And so I have done not so much a part that I hated, but perhaps writing that I did not think was as good as some of the writing I've been fortunate enough to do. So yeah, I've done that. Because yes, I have to make a living.
Now, you're one of the very few celebrities, Carol, who has absolutely no presence on social media. You don't have a website. Why not?
Because I don't know, I don't know how, and everything electronic drives me out of my mind. And B, I I don't know. I don't want to really be telling everybody everything about my life. I want my personal life to be my personal life.
Well, one of the reasons many celebrities are on social media is so that they can connect with their fans. So I'm just wondering, since you're not on social media, Carol, do you have a sense of how popular and beloved you are by the public? Do you get that?
Oh, that's so sweet of you, Harvey. I don't know. I don't know. I'm honored if that is the case. I'm truly honored and grateful. And I don't mean to not connect with my fans. I'm not trying to aggressively not connect, and I hope that that's not the impression that is given by not having social media. But we didn't have social media 5 minutes ago. I don't even understand what it is, but you just defined it in a way that makes me feel a little guilty, which is that it's a way that people connect with their fans.
Well, by doing interviews like this, you are connecting with your fans.
Okay.
And that's why I want you to know that people really love you. They really appreciate your work and your talent.
Thank you, Harvey. What a great thing to take with me in my day.
Well, Carol, I have only one more question for you, and it's this.
Okay.
In 2015, you were the recipient of the Washington Jewish Film Festival's prestigious Visionary Award for expertly showcasing the Jewish experience on the silver screen. And in that context, I have to commend you for your brilliant work in Hunters, which is an incredible show starring Al Pacino about Nazi hunters. So, Carol, my question to you is, what are your thoughts about the rampant spread of anti-Semitism across North America and around the world these days?
Oh, it's terrifying, and I think we should be taking it seriously. It's terrifying.
Well, I think it's very important that your Jewish fans and the Jewish community know that you're with us.
Thank you.
Well,
It's my honor, my pleasure to, be able to portray some of the incredibly courageous people that I have portrayed who come from Eastern Europe, and I mean, incredibly brave people, just including Gero from Hester Street, just getting on a boat, going to a new world, not speaking the language. And that was just what people just did that. I don't think I could do it.
well, that was a very important role because she didn't just have to adjust to America. She had to adjust to a husband who became American.
Right.
She had to catch up. I've got to tell you, Miss Carol Kane, it's been a real pleasure meeting you and having this opportunity to celebrate your monumental career. I know you don't grant a lot of interviews. I'm immensely grateful to you for taking the time to speak with me
Oh,
today.
thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you for taking the time.
Our guest has been the legendary Carol Kane. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Take care, dear Harvey.
Thank you to my producer, Steve Silver, my managers, Rick Marcelli and Robin Bragg Marcelli at the Marcelli Company in Hollywood, my director of programming, Robert Monaghan, my PR directors, Eileen Shapiro and Jimmy Starr, and my entire team at the XPTV1 network in the UK.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all the great interviews on the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted.